You know how it is. We all do it. We see someone, we see what they're doing, and boom, we form an opinion. We judge. But have you ever stopped to think that maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't what we're looking at, but what we're looking through? Today, we're going to dive into that hidden trap of judgment. It really boils down to this one fundamental question about how we see everything around us. Are we truly looking at the world objectively, seeing it exactly as it is? Or, and this is the big one, is our vision kind of tinted by our own stuff? Our experiences, our emotions, our own insecurities? The idea is pretty simple. If our mind is cluttered, we tend to see faults everywhere else. So, to really see how this works, let's unpack this simple but, wow, really powerful story. Okay, so our story is about a young woman named Clara. Now, Clara, she prided herself on being exceptionally tidy. Her home was always spotless. But she had this very human habit of focusing on the flaws she saw in other people. And this habit, it had a daily ritual. Every single morning, she'd be sipping her coffee, looking out her kitchen window at her neighbor's home. And what she'd fixate on was her neighbor hanging laundry out to dry on the clothesline. And this is what she'd whisper to her husband, who would just be, quietly reading his newspaper. She'd go on, analyzing every sheet and every towel, totally convinced her neighbor was just incompetent or maybe just didn't care enough to do a proper job. Day after day, it was the same thing. The criticism just kept coming. One day, the sheets were gray and stained. The next, the towels looked dusty. And this pattern wasn't just about observation. It actually made Clara feel kind of superior. But here's the thing. This daily dose of judgment was also clouding her own world, starting her day off with annoyance instead of peace. So this routine, it might have just gone on forever, but one sunny morning, everything was about to change. Clara's wise Aunt Rose came to visit, and her arrival, well, it marked a huge turning point. So, of course, as they're sitting there having tea, Clara sees her neighbor hanging clothes again. "Oh, look, Aunt Rose," she said, pointing. "Look at that poor woman's laundry. It's so dirty." She was totally expecting her aunt to agree with her, to validate this opinion she'd held for so long. But Aunt Rose didn't say a thing. Instead, she just stood up, walked over to the sink, wet a cloth, and went right to that kitchen window. Clara's just watching, totally confused, as her aunt starts wiping the inside of the glass, scrubbing away this thin, almost invisible layer of dust and grease. Aunt Rose sits back down and just says, "Now, Clara, look again." So Clara looks, and she gasps. The neighbor's sheets, they weren't gray at all. They were bright white, sparkling clean in the sun. The problem wasn't the laundry. It had been perfectly clean the entire time. And that's when Aunt Rose delivered the lesson. With these really gentle words, she explained that Clara had been judging her neighbor's work for weeks, but she was looking through the filter of her own dirty glass. The problem wasn't out there, it was right there, right in front of her. This simple story, it just perfectly illustrates this incredibly powerful idea we can call the clean window principle. So here's the crucial point. What we perceive as flaws in other people are very often just reflections of our own internal state. That dirt on Clara's window, it was her own judgment, her own negativity, coloring every single thing she saw. So what is that dirt on our own window? Well, it's our insecurities, our biases, maybe some anger or jealousy. It's our own unaddressed flaws. So often when we criticize someone else, we're really just projecting what's truly going on inside of us. All right, so knowing this, how do we actually apply it? How do we stop being Clara pointing at the dirty laundry and start being Aunt Rose, the one who knows to clean the window first? It's really a simple 3-step process. First, the next time you feel that impulse to judge someone, just pause, just for a second. Second, ask yourself this one simple question. Is my window clean? Am I seeing this person clearly, or am I maybe looking through my own anger or jealousy or insecurity? And third, shift your focus. Shift it from their supposed flaw to your potential filter. And that brings us right back to the core wisdom of the whole story. The world itself doesn't really change, but our perception of it, that can. And when it does, it changes everything. It's all about taking responsibility for our own lens before we look out at the world. And that leaves us with one final essential question to really think about. If you make a commitment to keeping your own window clean, what might you start seeing in the world and in other people that you've been missing all along?